Well, it's 3 years later. Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega are out, and Neve Campbell's Sidney Prescott is back. But was it even worth it? Hi everybody, Anthony here from Awesome Anthony Productions, and today I'm going to give you my review of Scream 7. Bringing Sidney back as the main character, Scream 7 picks up with her living a mostly peaceful life in the quiet town of Pine Grove, Indiana. She's married to the police chief Mark, played by a certain ex-lawyer himself, Joel McHale. And they have 3 daughters together, the younger 2 conveniently being out of this movie and out of the state with the in-laws, while the third, Isabel Mays Tatum, is constantly at odds with her mom for being so secretive about her past. The quiet peace that Sidney knows, though, is quickly shattered when a new ghost face, claiming to be the late, great Stu Macher, played by Matthew Lillard, comes on the scene, once again threatening Sidney and everyone she cares about. Now, I made my thoughts on Scream 5 very apparent in my top 10 worst movies of 2022 video.
Sucks.
I kinda hated that movie. It's annoying cast, its stupid killer reveal. Thankfully, the 6th entry fixed a lot of these problems and was a lot more fun and brutal, even if the amount of injury that this cast walked away from was just ridiculous at points.
Technically, you should be dead.
But with this one completely abandoning the overarching story of Melissa Barrera's Sam and her lineage as a half Loomis, my expectations were totally up in the air. And having watched it, I can confidently say,
I mean, it's alright, like...
Though if I'm being honest, it does lean more towards bad, in my opinion. I'll start with some praise. This doesn't come close to the worst of the franchise, thankfully. The characters are better than in 5, the story gets nowhere near as silly as 3, and I do think Sidney herself is used pretty well here. Neve Campbell is just as strong as she's ever been in this series, and I do think she does have some solid moments opposite her on-screen daughter Tatum, played by Isabel May, even if I do have more to say about that character later.
I don't like her.
And even if the fan service goes off the rails, seeing Matthew Lillard return to this franchise, even in the weird-ass way this movie does it, was pretty satisfying, and I will never get tired of seeing Sidney and Courtney Cox's Gail Weathers team up to do some investigating. You can't see it, but our dog is coming up to join the party. I also thought that the rest of the cast playing Tatum's friends was solid. McKenna Grace, Asa Germain, Celeste O'Connor, Sam Reckner, even if they don't have anywhere close to the personality and writing of some of the best side characters in this series. That extends to the rest of the supporting cast too, including Joel McHale, Anna Camp. They're good in their roles, they just don't really have much to make them stand out. Mason Gooding and Jasmine Savoy Brown are back again as the Meeks Martin twins, Chad and Mindy, and though it was nice to see at least 2 members of the core 4 stick around, they really didn't need to be here.
Why are you here?
That being said, Chad is still charming as ever, and Mindy was a lot less insufferable this time around, which was a nice touch, because I really couldn't stand her in the last 2 movies. Back to the praise, I seriously have to give them credit for upping the ante in terms of the violence here. I think this might have the goriest, nastiest, most surprising kills in this entire series. I can handle pretty much anything that a horror slasher movie throws at me, and this was no different, but I'm not gonna lie, I did gasp at a few points and let out a few "oh shits" during the movie. There is more CGI blood than I would have liked to see. But man, what this movie lacks in certain areas, it more than makes up for with the violence. And I mean that. The opening, with Jimmy Tatro and Michelle Randolph staying at the Macher murder house, which has now been turned into an Airbnb, because of course it has.
Oh, groovy, smashing, yay capitalism!
Really sets the tone for the level of brutality shown here. Even if it does drag on a bit and is a little too, hey, remember this plot point from the series? But I'll get into that, trust me. I also enjoyed the climax and ending, for what it's worth. The way the killer was brought down was a perfect punch to end this highly unnecessary sequel, and it left me both laughing and a little shocked at how nasty it was. Now, to discuss the shortcomings of this movie. Strap in. To start with, Kevin Williamson and the writers here must have been very nervous about letting this movie stand on its own merit, because this really does feel like Scream 7, the one with all the fan service. From the opening, almost every scene features a super on-the-nose line or callback to the other movies, or at times, characters literally describing, verbatim, a plot point that happened before. And it got old so fast.
Enough.
Movies like the Super Mario Bros. Movie, Spider-Man No Way Home, the Spider-Verse movies, even Deadpool and Wolverine, they all include moments of fan service that, for lack of a better word, service the story and help to build up the world around them. This one, instead, is like, hey, remember this? Recognize this character? Recognize this jacket? Remember this plot point? Isn't that cool that we're bringing this all up many movies later? By the halfway point, I was like, okay, I get it. Can we get back to the actual story, please? Speaking of the story, even though it does have some solid character moments with Sidney, Tatum, Mark, Gail, and the Meeks Martin twins, the overall package here is really just a resounding eh. And even though I tried, I was never really invested like I was in previous entries. I also need to mention Isabel Mays Tatum real quick before I move on. She kinda sucks.
You suck!
May does a great job in the role, but this is yet just another example of a sassy teenage character that just has her apathy and attitude dialed up to 11, and I kinda couldn't stand her up until the end. She reminded me of Catherine Newton's character in Ant-Man 3. Now, another character I have to mention, Matthew Lillard's Stu Macher. I know, there are probably plenty of you out there that freaked out when I mentioned him coming back in this movie, thinking that I spoiled everything, but I promise you I didn't. There's a line from him in the trailer.
This is gonna be fun. This is gonna be fun.
Along with the fact that Matthew Lillard's return was hugely publicized, and they introduced him pretty early on in the movie. And what did they do with him? Not a damn thing.
Why are you here?
I'm not going to get into actual spoilers, but the reveal of what's actually going on with him coming back was just so lackluster to me and felt like a complete waste. Really? You got Matthew Lillard back and this is what you did with him? But that's just another example of the over-reliance on fan service that this movie heavily indulges in. Even one of the staples of the series that has worked well every time, the satirization of horror movie tropes and segments where someone dies into the rules,
There's a formula to it. A very simple formula!
just felt familiar and paint by numbers. And don't even get me started on what has been my main complaint from these last few movies. Someone on this crew really just doesn't understand how injuries affect the human body. Just like in the last two, characters are tossed around, hit in the head hard with so many objects, stabbed multiple times, etc., only to be shown later barely alive or up and walking around like it's nothing.
Why won't you die?
I don't expect total realism out of my slasher movies, but I can only suspend my disbelief so much before I say, okay, come on. Lastly, with my complaints, it's the killer reveal. Again, I'm not going to spoil it obviously, but this one made Scream 5s look like poetry. They decided to veer totally into left field and produce one of the dumbest reveals in this entire series. Actually, I think it might take the cake as the dumbest, complete with over-the-top, manic acting, a completely convoluted backstory, and a just pointless feeling to the whole thing.
It's just so pointless.
At least it leads to a badass climax and a solid ending. It's too bad that Spyglass decided to fire Melissa Barrera, because I really would have loved to see a conclusion to the Core 4 story and see one more outing for the Carpenter sisters, instead of this thrown together, mediocre mess of a sequel. Overall, Scream 7 suffers from a lackluster, bland story that relies way too much on fan service, features a cast of paper-thin characters that survive things that should have killed them instantly, and quite possibly the worst killer reveal this series has ever seen. Even if it does have a solid cast with strong performances and some good character moments from the leads, the most intense and gory kills of all of these movies, and a strong opening, climax, and ending. I kinda wish this franchise would have ended with 6, but Scream 8 was already announced, so we'll see where they go. And that's my review of Scream 7. Thank you so much for watching. Please comment, leave a like, subscribe, and come back tomorrow for my bite-sized review of a drama starring Wanda Sykes, Undercard, and again on Friday for a review of another indie movie, horror movie Diabolic, both sent to me by Pixel Scene Media. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.